My name is Kaia Mercer, 28 years old. I wish I could say my life began with a steady hand on my back, but the first hand I remember is the one letting go. When I was 7, my mother, Lorraine, zipped her suitcase closed like she was sealing a wound and told the court she didn't want custody, didn't want weekends, didn't want to try. She wanted out. My dad, Robert, could have asked for child support. Any lawyer would have urged him to. He didn't. Pride is a costly backbone. He said we would manage, and most days, manage looked like counting tips under the fluorescent hiss of our small diner and pretending the numbers added up. I grew up in a booth that smelled like coffee and fryer oil. On slow nights, Dad would push a plate across to me and say, "Eat, kiddo," which often meant finishing whatever a customer didn't. It wasn't gross when it was survival, it was just dinner. We fell behind on rent, then caught up, then fell behind again. Money was a tide, and sometimes we woke up on wet sand. If it had only been the leaving, maybe I would have fantasized about Lorraine as a tragic comet. Too bright, too brief. But it wasn't just that. It was the annual birthday card in generic cursive, the ones that read, "So proud of you, love, Mom," with a glittering platitude and no return address. It was the silence between those cards, the way a year could pass like a locked door. Aunt Mara, my mother's older sister, saved us in ways that never made noise. She kept in touch, not with grand gestures, but with steady presence. When I turned 14, she put a box on our kitchen table, a laptop that felt like it weighed more than possibility. She paid for online programming courses, and for the first time, rules felt like safety, not restrictions. Code made promises. If you do this, then that. No courtroom could unmake an if statement. I started working young, babysitting, then stocking shelves, then waitressing the late shift at the campus diner once I got to high school. Every dollar marched into a jar labeled bills, then tuition, then escape. I studied like someone chasing a train. The scholarship letter came senior spring, full ride for computer science at the State University. Dad sat down when I told him, like his knees forgot how to be knees. "You did it," he said, voice rough. "You got the door open." I stayed home to save on housing, worked 2 jobs, and freelanced in the evenings, building tiny apps for tiny clients who were huge to me. I woke at 5, slept after midnight, and measured life in tasks completed. While other students discovered music festivals and weekend getaways, I discovered how to debug with my eyes half closed. If I sound proud, maybe I am. Mostly, I was starving for a future that didn't taste like reheated fries. The thing about focus is that it turns into momentum. An IT startup I'd freelanced for offered me a junior position right after graduation. They were in Seattle, a city that looked like it had been assembled from glass and rain. Leaving home was a rupture in its own right. The first time I put distance between Dad and me that wasn't emotional, but actual miles. The salary felt fictional. I paid rent and didn't panic. I bought groceries without cross-checking sales. The first time I tossed blueberries into a cart without thinking, I cried in aisle 9, next to the dish soap. Once my income stabilized, I started sending Dad $1,000 every month. We patched the diner roof and swapped the wheezing refrigerator for a quiet beast that cooled like it meant it. When his old car sighed into the shoulder one February, I bought a used sedan that started on the first try. The color was forgettable. The feeling wasn't. I'd invested $10,000 of my savings into the startup early, a number that made me nauseous when I transferred it. 5 years later, the company took off. My portion grew into $300,000. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. I made a down payment on a small downtown condo, white walls, and big windows that watched the weather breathe. I furnished it with things that didn't wobble. I sent Dad $30,000 to kill a diner loan, and when we video called after he paid it off, he pressed his palm to the camera like he was blessing me. This might be where the story ended. Girl survives, girl thrives, if the past didn't tend to knock. One evening in October, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Outside stood my mother, Lorraine, a woman whose face was both stranger and mirror, and beside her, a lanky teenage boy with a phone fused to his palm. "Kaia," she said, a smile stitched on. "Surprise," she gestured. "This is Ethan, your brother." "Brother? The word felt borrowed. I let them in because sometimes the child in you opens doors the adult has locked. Lorraine walked my living room with her eyes, cataloging cost, the couch, the shelves, the view. "You've done so well," she said softly, like she was afraid of scaring the money. "I'm so proud." I nodded because nodding costs nothing. She talked about fate, about family, about how she thought of me every day for 21 years, which was impressive math for someone who couldn't find a pen to address a real letter. Then she arrived at the sentence she'd come to say. "Ethan's applying to college, computer science, like you. Tuition will be $75,000. We hoped you could help. $300 a month would make it manageable." The room got smaller. Before I could respond, Ethan flicked his gaze up from his screen. "For someone who makes good money, your place is small," he observed. "And your car is kind of weak." He said it like a performance review. "I'll need a decent car," he added, "like 35 grand, and a new phone." I looked at Lorraine. "How did you find me?" "Your aunt," she said lightly. She was so happy when I told her I wanted to make things right. I felt something slip inside my chest. Disappointment at Aunt Mara, sharper at myself for wanting this to be reparable. "I need time," I said, "to think." "Of course," Lorraine replied, with a gentleness that felt like gauze. "Take all the time you need." After they left, I sat and listened to the refrigerator. I called Dad and told him. He paused so long I thought we'd dropped the call. "It's your choice," he said finally. "Help or don't. Let her in or don't. I won't steer you." That was his way. Dignity as policy. Then I called my aunt. "Why did you give her my address?" The question came out smaller than I wanted. "She said she wanted to make amends," Aunt Mara said, voice full of hope that sounded already bruised. "I thought maybe this time." I told her I wasn't angry. I told myself the same thing. Morning brought a phone call. Lorraine asked if I'd decided. I told her I was still considering. "Don't take too long," she said. "Ethan needs to plan." That evening, my aunt texted a link. "You should see this." Lorraine's social media bloomed on my screen. So happy to announce I finally reconnected with my daughter. Her father kept us apart for years, but we found our way. She's a successful programmer and has agreed to help her little brother go to college. Family is everything. Posted 2 hours ago. Comments from relatives I hadn't seen since childhood. Heart emojis, praise hands. A few pointed notes about forgiveness. My hand shook in a way typing couldn't fix. I called. "Take it down," I said. "Now. You lied about Dad. You lied about me." "I don't think I will," she answered, silky. "Now everyone knows you agreed. If you back out, you'll look like a liar." In the background, Ethan. "And the car. Don't forget the car. And the new phone." Something in me, the durable part, clicked into place. "No," I said. "Absolutely not." "You're selfish," she snapped. "You have more than enough. Help your family." "You left your family," I said. "You left me." "That's the past," she said, voice iced. "Let it go. You're a stranger." "You'll regret this," she hissed and hung up. I blocked her, but the post had already done its work. DMs from cousins, people I'd never met, moralizing from the safe distance of not knowing the facts. I stared at my silent phone and realized reputation could be weaponized by anyone willing to lie first. I also realized something else, hazier but present, the way Lorraine's gaze had landed on my open laptop that night, the way Ethan's thumbs moved like he was itching to type on anything he could. It was a flicker, not a fact, but it felt like weather changing. I closed every app and set my mug on a coaster, an instinct to control anything I could touch. The city outside breathed fog onto the window. Somewhere across town, my mother was writing a story about me. I would have to decide which parts of it I was willing to keep and which parts I would rewrite. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the digital clock march from 1:12 to 3:47, the red numbers like a quiet siren. By morning, I had a plan that felt less like revenge and more like oxygen. Document, secure, and stop letting other people spin my life like a rumor. I took screenshots of Lorraine's post and the comments, exported them with timestamps, and backed everything up to an encrypted drive. If she wanted to write a story, I would keep the footnotes. At work, I kept my head down and my coffee full. Seattle wore its gray sky like a thoughtful expression. Around noon, my director pinged me. "Got a minute?" I walked into his office expecting a product pivot. Instead, I saw the look managers wear when they're about to apologize for humanity. "A woman came to see me yesterday," he said. "She claimed she was your mother. She cried, to help your brother with tuition, asked me to talk sense into you. I told her this is not a place for family negotiations and asked her to leave, but I thought you should know." Embarrassment sifted through me like sand. "Thank you," I said. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." "You don't owe me an apology," he said. "You owe yourself boundaries." The word hit like a bell. On my walk back to my desk, I realized I was done auditioning for a role in a family that had recast me as ungrateful whenever I didn't deliver. The messages started that evening because I'd accidentally unblocked Lorraine cleaning up my contacts. "Please, sweetie, your brother needs this." Then, "You're his only chance at a real education." Then sharper, "If you don't help, everyone will know what kind of person you are." Ethan chimed in with a shopping list. Car, phone, something that won't embarrass me. I didn't answer. Silence is its own language. A week later came the knock. Through the peephole, Lorraine, chin lifted, and Ethan with the slouch of someone allergic to humility. I told myself that letting them in would allow me to set boundaries in person. Boundaries need doors, and doors need hinges, and hinges swing. I opened. Lorraine took the couch like she'd earned it, talking about weather and neighborhoods, and the view, like the last time we'd seen each other, wasn't a courtroom where she asked a judge to remove me from her future. "Would you make us tea, please?" she asked, using a tone designed to slide past defenses. I went to the kitchen, steeped 2 bags, and assembled a plate of sandwiches out of muscle memory. The kettle sang, the city sighed. Something in me prickled. When I returned, Ethan was at my desk. My laptop sat open, the cursor blinking like a tiny heartbeat. I crossed the room in 3 steps. "What are you doing?" "Relax," he said, palms up. "Just looking." "Out," I said, voice gone flat. My emergency room voice, the one I imagined I'd have if code bled. "Both of you, now." They left with wounded expressions. A theater of offense. The quiet afterward felt expensive. I sat at my desk, closed my eyes, and counted to 10 the way kids are taught to delay fury. Then I ran a full scan. 20 minutes crawled by. The report returned with a bruise. A keylogger installed roughly 10 minutes earlier, right when Ethan had been just looking. It had attempted to capture keystrokes, to siphon passwords and bank logins, to turn my life into a data stream they could monetize. I'm a programmer. Too many nights I've traced bad code to bad actors. My hands moved before my fear did. I quarantined, removed, and audited everything. I rotated passwords, flipped 2-factor authentication on accounts that didn't have it, and reseated those that did. Then I picked up the phone and called a lawyer I trusted, Jason Anderson, who'd guided me through the condo purchase and never talked down to me. "I need to file a restraining order," I said. "Tell me everything," he said. And I did. The social post, the workplace ambush, the messages, the visit, the keylogger. "We'll move fast," he said. "Preserve every piece of evidence. Screen captures of the malware detection. Timestamps, any logs." I sent him a packet before midnight with file hashes and export trails. I slept after 3, but it was the sleep that comes when you've at least named the enemy. The hearing was set 3 weeks out. Waiting is an art I never learned well. I filled the days with work, with Dad's phone calls about daily diner specials, with Aunt Mara's gentler voice reminding me to eat something that had a color not found in keyboard backlighting. When Lorraine messaged, I didn't engage. When she posted, I refused to read. The only narrative I fed was the one in my case file. Jason and I met 2 days before court in his office, a room that smelled like leather and paper, where time felt organized. He flipped through the evidence binder. "We have more than enough," he said. "Do not let their lawyers shame you for having boundaries. That's a frequent tactic." "Why does it feel like I'm betraying her?" I asked, "when she's the one who left?" "Because you're rewiring a lesson you learned at 7, he said. "That love is maintained by overfunctioning. Today, you're choosing another lesson." The courtroom was a cool, careful place. Lorraine sat with a lawyer I didn't recognize, wearing a cardigan that made her look softer than her threats. Ethan fidgeted, eyes flicking to me with the faint contempt of someone who believes consequences are for other people. Jason presented the packet, the malware report with timestamps, screenshots of messages, the social media post claiming I'd promised money and smearing my father. When he finished, my mother's lawyer tried to shape the narrative into a misunderstanding. Youthful curiosity, he said of Ethan's installation. An attempt to connect, he said of Lorraine's visit. He's 18, the judge said. Curiosity ends where consent begins. He looked at the evidentiary timeline, then at me. You have the right to security in your home and in your accounts. The restraining order was granted, permanent, with a 500-foot radius around my home and workplace. For a breath, I felt lighter than air. The relief lasted exactly 4 days. On a Tuesday afternoon, my phone pinged with a bank alert. Attempted transfer blocked. 2-factor authentication required. My stomach dropped as if an elevator cable had snapped. I opened the app, saw the failed $15,000 transfer, and the urgent notation beside it. I called Jason. Don't touch anything, he said. I'm filing a police report now. Keep your device where it is. We'll coordinate with the bank's fraud unit. The police traced the attempt to an IP address associated with a home network, my mother's. The detective assigned to the case called to brief me. We have enough for attempted fraud, he said. It will likely result in probation, fines, possibly more if the DA wants to make a point. I thanked him and hung up, then sat very still. Guilt fluttered in, an old reflex with new clothes. I pictured Lorraine's hands in handcuffs and felt a flash of pity so fast I almost missed it. Then I remembered the keylogger, the public lies, the workplace intrusion, the way she said, let it go, like the past was a receipt that could be thrown out. Compassion without boundaries is just access. I chose both. Compassion for a life that disappointed itself, boundaries for mine. News traveled quietly through family lines. A cousin texted a half-question, half-accusation, then stopped when I replied with the court order's existence. Aunt Mara called and didn't ask for details. Are you safe? She asked. Yes, I said, and meant it. Then that's enough. Weeks stacked. The DA accepted a plea for probation. No jail. Sometimes justice looks like a locked door rather than a cell. Ethan didn't go to college that fall. Or the next. Lorraine and he left Seattle. Rumor said south. I did not look up the zip code. One evening, I visited Aunt Mara. Her kitchen light made everything look kind. She brewed coffee and took my hand across the table. I need to tell you something, she said. Months ago, before this all blew up, your mother called me, said she was sick, needed $10,000 for medical bills. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the prelude to anger, sorrow's bodyguard. I gave it to her, Aunt said. I wanted to believe. She lifted her chin, steady. After the mess with you, I asked her directly about the diagnosis. She admitted she lied. She won't pay me back. She blocked my number when I asked. I'm so sorry, I said. I'm not, she said. Not anymore. It clarified something. She stood, opened a drawer, and returned with papers. I changed my will. Everything I own goes to you. Not to her, not to Ethan. You, because you show up, because you tell the truth even when it hurts. I cried then, not from greed, but from being chosen for the right reasons. On the drive home, the night felt cleaner than it had in months. A boundary is not a wall, it's a door with a lock and your hand on the key. I intended to keep it that way. And still, beneath the relief, a small, unsettled note hummed. If someone is willing to rewrite the past and pick your locks, what do they do with your name when you stop answering? The question lingered like low weather on the horizon. Spring rolled into summer as if nothing had happened, but I carried the echo of that courtroom everywhere. I'd expected peace to feel like silence. Instead, it sounded like vigilance. The hum of my phone's 2-factor code, the click of my apartment lock, the whir of the security camera I finally installed in the hallway. I wasn't afraid exactly, just alert, the way you stay alert after lightning hits once. Lorraine pleaded to reduce charges and got probation. Ethan avoided court altogether. I could have followed the details, but I didn't. I deleted the news alerts, muted every mutual relative online, and told Jason to update me only if something required my attention. He respected that. His final message on the case read, "Closed. You can breathe again." I wanted to believe him. Dad was the one who reminded me what breathing actually meant. Come home for a while, he said over the phone. The diner's doing fine. I've got a booth with your name on it. I took 2 weeks off, packed a small suitcase, and drove back to the town that still smelled like grease and rain. When I walked into the diner, the bell over the door sounded like childhood. The paint was new, the lights brighter, but it was still us. Dad looked older, but easier. The lines on his face had shifted from strain to satisfaction. Best year we've had, he said proudly. Debt-free. Regular customers coming back just to tell me they remember when you used to do your homework in that corner booth. I smiled. Guess you were right. Hard work doesn't kill you. It just changes your sleep schedule. He laughed, the same deep laugh that used to carry me through everything. We cooked together that night. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, nothing fancy. Over dinner, he said, I'm proud of you. Not for surviving her. For building something better anyway. Those words sat inside me like a lit candle. A few days later, I drove to see Aunt Mara. Her house was small and full of warmth. Lace curtains, photographs, the smell of cinnamon and old books. She greeted me at the door with that tired joy that means someone has been counting the days. You look stronger, she said, and calmer. Therapy's helping? Yeah, I said. It's strange realizing healing feels more like maintenance than magic. She poured coffee, black and strong. I've been thinking about your mother, she admitted. How two sisters can be born under the same roof and end up speaking different languages of love. I didn't know how to answer, so I reached for humor. Maybe one of you learned grammar and the other learned improvisation. She smiled, but her eyes glistened. I still love her, she said quietly. But I love truth more. I hope you know that. I do, I said. You taught me. We sat there for hours, talking about everything except money, which was her way of giving me peace. When I left, she hugged me tighter than usual. I've got the paperwork all sorted, she said, half a whisper. You'll be taken care of when I'm gone. Promise me you'll use it for something good. I promise. Back in Seattle, I booked my first therapy session in person with Dr. Martinez instead of over video. She was calm, silver-haired, with that measured patience therapists wear like armor. You've been surviving on vigilance, she said after I recounted everything. Now you have to learn how to live without scanning every shadow. I don't know how, I admitted. We'll learn together, she said. Week by week, we peeled back layers I didn't know existed. Abandonment wounds, overachievement as armor, the reflex to apologize for existing. I learned that love without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. I learned that saying no can be a kind of prayer. Work kept me grounded. The startup had grown exponentially after its big break, and my role expanded with it. My team had become a second family, the healthy kind, the kind that celebrated small wins and owned their mistakes. When I got promoted to lead a new project, my director said, "You've earned this. You don't need to prove it anymore." That sentence nearly made me cry. For the first time in years, I looked at my bank account and didn't think of defense. I thought of potential. Security had always been my goal. Financial, emotional, physical. Now I wondered if generosity could be part of it too. I remembered how Aunt Mara's one act of kindness, a laptop and a class, had rerouted my entire life. What if I could multiply that? I reached out to a nonprofit that provided scholarships and mentoring to underprivileged kids interested in tech. I'd like to make a donation, I told the director over the phone. Something meaningful. How meaningful? She asked, cautious but kind. $50,000, I said, and maybe mentorship opportunities if you need them. She gasped, then caught herself. That would change so many lives. Someone changed mine once, I said. I'm just passing it forward. When the paperwork went through, she sent me a thank you email with photos of kids who'd just received laptops and acceptance letters. I stared at their faces until my vision blurred. It felt like redemption, not revenge. The months that followed were quiet in the best way. Dad drove up once a month to visit, bringing pies from a new baker in town. We'd walk along the waterfront, talking about nothing and everything. He started hinting about retirement, about selling the diner. Maybe I'll move closer, he said. Get a little apartment near you. I'd like that, I said. Seattle's not so bad once you make peace with the rain. He chuckled. I'm used to storms. By fall, Aunt Mara's health began to slip. Nothing drastic, just the gentle fatigue of age. I started visiting her more often. We'd sit in her kitchen, hands around mugs, and talk about the past like it was a place we'd survived together. I'm glad you're happy, she said one evening. Your mother never understood what she had. But you understand what love costs. I had good teachers, I said. She smiled. Promise me you won't let bitterness steal your kindness. People like your mother, they don't deserve space in your peace. I promise. That winter, the foundation sent me an update. More kids had graduated, more lives shifted. They'd even named one of the mentorship programs after me, the Mercer Initiative. It felt surreal seeing my name associated with hope instead of pain. Sometimes, late at night, I'd still wonder where Lorraine and Ethan had gone. A rumor said Texas, another said Florida. But whenever the thought tried to turn into curiosity, I let it die quietly. Some stories don't need sequels. Then spring returned again, and with it, a lightness I hadn't felt in decades. I met with Dr. Martinez one morning, and she said, "You look different. What changed?" I stopped rehearsing apologies for things I didn't do, I told her. She smiled. That's what healing sounds like. That night, I stood by my window overlooking the city. Seattle shimmered under the streetlights, steady and alive. I thought of the girl eating leftovers in a diner booth, of the teenager coding by the glow of a secondhand laptop, of the woman who'd learned that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the refusal to let chaos own you. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for another knock. I was home, finally, in every way that mattered.